Good evening.
Good evening, Point. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you perfect.
Perfect. Bluetooth is working fine.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
really happy to have you join. Um, so we've got quite a number of viewers coming in. It's a big day in
lovely.
Bangladesh where most of my
Yes.
followers are from. So it was
Yes.
election day today. And I believe the votes are being counted right now. So I'm sure
Okay.
everybody is very tense
Yes.
in anticipation. So it's absolutely perfect timing
Perfect
to do
timing. And
this
I
live.
can understand how you all feel because we're like brothers and sisters in this regard because we just had our national elections on Sunday.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Um, so before we start, I would like to invite everyone who's watching to just pause for a moment and take a deep breath with us. Can we all do that? And let it go. Relax your body, relax your eyes, and just sit back and let's enjoy this conversation we're going to have. Point, first of
Hmm.
all, thank you once again for joining me today. And
Thank you for hosting.
of course, my pleasure. And can you share a little bit with us about who you are and about the work you do?
So, like I briefly mentioned in our teaser video a few days back, my name is Point by my nickname, or Tawan Rakamanon by my Thai name. I know your Thai is getting better. You're learning Thai very fast, so you can pronounce it in no time for
A
sure.
little better, yeah.
So, I am a mental health counselor. And what I really love to do with my work is really help people learn a psychological skill set that helps them to take back control, take back power, and really thrive in life, really live the life they want and one of joy. Because I think that mental health should be something that is number one, easy to understand, right?
Hmm.
To see the connections between the way we think, the way we feel, our belief systems, and our behaviors. So it should be easy to understand. It should be most importantly empowering. Empowering means self agency, personal agency.
Hmm.
Achieve the
Yes.
goals you want. You have thinking styles, attitudes, and belief systems that work for you, not against you. Okay. Again, easy to understand, empowering, and number three, evidence based, right? So when we claim to believe something, you have to be able to back it up in your direct experience. Otherwise, it's flimsy and it's weak. And if you got these three pillars right, life becomes a play for you. Life becomes fun. That's what we
Mm.
call thriving. And that's where joy is at. And I think human beings are at their absolute best when they are joyful and happy.
So, Point, I'm going to ask you the pause within is also known as Pakjai in Thai, since you said I'm
Pak
learning
Jai. Yes, Pak
Pakjai. So,
Jai.
am I saying that correctly?
Correct. Pak Jai.
Okay, great. So, can you tell me what that means to you, Pakjai?
Great question. I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think for me, to take a pause and go within is an opportunity, really. An opportunity to develop mindfulness, to
Mm-hmm.
develop awareness, to develop clarity, and more importantly, to bring yourself back into alignment to who you are on a more fundamental level.
Right.
Now, when we topic mindfulness, you know, mindful breath, mindful breathing, we tend to think of it as just a simple tool to manage stress a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
to go through the daily hurdles and challenges of life a little bit better. But I think to frame it like that would be limiting it because it really is an opportunity to take a step back and just look at your thinking and thoughts for what they are, to see your habit of thought, your thinking patterns, and what they reflect in terms of what you believe, why you feel the way you do. And when you really start to get that, you're no longer at the grip of your emotions. You're back in control. You're back in the driver's seat.
Right. And it's kind of what in yoga we call swadhyaya. So
Mm-hmm.
swadhyaya is a Sanskrit word, and that means self-study. So
Mm.
you sort of go within and you observe yourself, your patterns, your habits, and you study yourself, and then that's how you're able to maneuver yourself better in the world.
Yes,
So
yes, I completely agree.
speaking of the world, we live in a world that's always moving, right? Everything is going so fast, especially the world that we experience on social media is working so fast, right? So, given that's the situation, why do you think that resting, especially taking emotional rest or emotional pauses or breaks, feels so difficult for many people to achieve?
That's a great question. And let me first borrow the teachings of a well-respected spiritual teacher, Eckhart Tolle,
Yeah.
which I love learning from him and following him a lot. And you know, we live in a fast-paced world, so we lose ourselves in doing. We're engaged in doing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes when you're doing, your mind is outwardly oriented, right? So it's
Yeah.
always thinking about what to do next, what email I have to send, what my next meeting's going to be like, and then, oh, is it going to go back? Oh, is it going to like me? Oh, anxious, anxiety, all that
Yeah.
stuff, right? And then you lose yourself with what Eckhart Tolle would call the being dimension, which
Right.
is pretty much the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And in the present moment, you're actually in tune or in alignment with reality as it is. Because think about it, right? Imagine this as a thought experiment. I'm sitting here in my room in my home. It's safe. There's light, the air is fine. But if I'm like, I have this meeting next week, I have to present next week, is my boss gonna like what I have to present? I'm not really present, am I? I'm not here
No.
now. And when I'm lost in that engagement, I am so identified with the thought that I don't see my own internal processes. And that's where
Yes.
suffering begins, essentially. Right. So on a psychological level, I think that the reason why we find it difficult to take a pause is because we live in such a fast-paced world, and we have been slowly but gradually taught to believe that we have to do more, to be better, to have this, to have that. Otherwise, you're not enough. And
So, so,
yeah.
so that brings me to another question. That is, what happens to our mental health when we do give ourselves the opportunity to pause?
Oh, that is wonderful. So when we give ourselves the opportunity to pause, if we're doing correctly and in the right way, right? We're not
Yes.
pausing as a way to escape reality. We're actually pausing as a way, the way I like to think about it is to actually recalibrate and align with reality again,
Mm-hmm.
right? Taking a pause helps us to kind of detach for a little bit, for a small moment, and just take a step back and imagine you're your own scientist studying your mind, like the word in yoga that you mentioned, self-study. You're taking
Yes.
a
What?
step back. Imagine you're watching a movie screen and you're watching those thoughts that pass by like clouds passing by, just with a
Mm-hmm.
sense of light-hearted curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Not needing to
Yeah.
try to control those thoughts, change them directly, or run away from them. And then you begin to realize, hmm, your thoughts create your emotions. Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotions are just an experience. Oh, interesting. Emotions don't have power over me until I believe they do. Oh, interesting. And I
Right.
think
And
that's where the fun
uh,
really begins in self-study.
so, so then, from your work as a mental health counselor, what are some signs that somebody's mind or heart is asking for a pause, even if they're not realizing it yet?
you know, that's I really like that question because if you ask me, I think that in this fast-paced world where we often move from a lack of awareness, we often do things from a place of, as teachers would say, unconsciousness, so to say. We don't, in other words, we don't really see the underlying motivator for why we do things, and therein leads to more problems than good. You might solve one problem, but you create more problems, and therein suffering. If you ask me,
Mm-hmm.
I would say everybody could use a pause, right? But to answer it more generally, I would say that the biggest sign that somebody is looking for a pause, whether they realize it or not, is when they're not joyful, when they're not happy.
When they're not feeling happy, when they're not
Yeah,
feeling satisfied or
joyful.
content,
Yeah,
right?
content,
Joy.
contentment,
Okay.
joy, happiness. Yeah.
Is it normal to always want to feel happy or to feel balanced? Like, what's more important? Like, I don't feel happy all the time. I'll be honest with you. I don't feel happy all the time.
Same for me too. Same for me too. But
Yeah.
the point is, when you're back in a neutral state of being, so to say, you don't create unnecessary stress for yourself, right?
Okay.
It would be abnormal if you're like sky high excited all the time, right? So thanks
Mm-hmm.
for bringing that to light, because this is where it gets a bit tricky to explain, because we tend to think in a either or, if or, black and white kind of way. Also, you got to be
Yeah.
always happy to be eliminated from suffering. Not really, right? Like, can you just take a moment and be here now? You don't have to feel ecstasy. Yeah, you don't have to feel such a burst of blissfulness, but just take a moment and just be in tune with yourself and be aware of your thought process for what they are. And I would say that that's a very good place to be, and it develops emotional resilience, which I want to talk about too, because it helps you to understand your thought processes and your emotional processes, and you don't become overwhelmed by them,
So,
and
so,
you feel more in control of yourself. That's the key point.
so what I wanted to ask you is when we feel overwhelmed or when we're not emotionally okay, are there any signs? Does it show up first, maybe in the body? Does it show up in your emotions or maybe in your thoughts? Like, are there any indicators that you would look out for in a person per se?
Great question. I think
Like,
fundamentally, yeah,
like
you're
is
saying.
burnout always obvious?
Not always obvious, but I think that if you really take an honest look at yourself, you can't escape the truth. You can't escape the truth of how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we set ourselves impossible standards to be high achievers, high performers, blah 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 all the time. And by setting that on a pedestal, you're kind of at the same time judging yourself in a very subtle way, right? So you're kind
Absolutely.
of making it seem like I don't allow myself to feel unhappy. So, I'm just going to pretend like I'm happy, when deep down, if you really look at it, if you really ask yourself a question, am I happy now? You'll find the answer. It's really that simple. And
I'm
it's
wondering, am I
completely
happy
okay to
now?
be unhappy, right? It's completely okay. I'm not happy all the time. You know, I
It's not
have
normal to
suffering,
be happy
you
all the time.
know, and that's called the human condition. But
Yeah.
but I think when we develop these psychological skill sets, say starting from taking a pause as a fundamental basis, what happens is you learn to carry your suffering courageously. And
Mhm.
there's great meaning to be found there. There's great fulfillment to be found there. It's like what many psychologists would call the hero's journey, so to say. You know,
The
yes,
hero's journey. What is
the
the
hero's
hero's journey?
journey. Well, we often think that happiness lies in achieving something, becoming somebody, some journey, some destination, because the human mind is very A to B, one, two, three logic. That's the intellect. But what the psychologists and the spiritual teachers have long known is happiness isn't in some end result, be all. You know what I mean? Isn't in the car you get, isn't in the house you live in, isn't in the status you achieve. It's in the process of growth and who you become in the process. That's the hero's journey, right?
Thanks for explaining that. Wow, it's really, really insightful. And so I want to ask, when life feels very, very difficult or overwhelming, right? What does emotional resilience really start to mean? And to not be strong, to not in a be strong way, but in a be human way. How does that show up?
I like that word. Be human, not be strong. Um, I think being human is about accepting that we have fleeting emotions. accepting that it's okay to feel vulnerable, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to be afraid, it's okay to feel free, fear, to feel free, fear, you know. But so what is emotional resilience? So let me start by explaining it this way, how I like to look at it. The reason why this work is often counterintuitive is because our senses plug us outwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your see, taste, touch, smell. Like we're always trying to, the brain is trying to predict, trying to understand. Is there danger here? Is there danger there? And trying to assess some prediction whether or not you can control it, you can avoid it. If you can control a fear situation or avoid it or prevent it from happening. That's not to say that you should not try to control things. But at the end of the day, life has way too many variables that you cannot control every single thing. So the
Yeah.
most fundamental thing is controlling and managing how you choose to respond, how you choose to feel, think, and about something. Right? Can you accept it? Can you tolerate it? So this is where emotional resilience comes in, because when we get uncomfortable with our emotions, say for example, you have a big project to deliver tomorrow morning, and you're anxious about whether or not your boss is gonna think well of you, what your clients are gonna think, etc. Right? In that discomfort, you kind of wanna look out there and control something or find a reason to explain the way you're feeling, which is actually an internal process, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to escape those emotions by controlling something out there.
Right.
But the counterintuitive thing is, well, take a step back, just learn to sit with it, tolerate it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, my heart's beating fast.
Mm.
Okay, I feel a bit anxious. That's okay. My knees a bit weak. My stomach is churning. It's just a sensation. And you're teaching your brain to rewire and understand that you are still safe and you are still in control.
Mm-hmm. And so you're saying that we should train ourselves to, we should practice sitting with uncomfortable feelings. So um, you're saying that we can train ourselves, right? So this
Precisely.
this habit or this resilience is it's not something that we're inherently born with, is it? Are some people born with it, or is it something we develop or cultivate over time?
Ooh, I like that. Well, when we're born as babies, we're completely helpless, aren't we? Because we completely depend on our mom, our mother, and our parents and our family to protect us. Right? But in terms of psychology, uh, powerlessness or helplessness is actually learned. It's got in roots, not in genetics, not in chemistry, right? It's a big misunderstanding. Not in the past, not in childhood trauma, but only ever in the belief systems that you currently hold. A belief is nothing more than a thought you keep on thinking. So to quickly link back to what I was just saying just now, when we react to our emotions in our discomfort, we tend to look outwards and try to blame something. You made me feel that way, right? Like if I don't know, for example, if I get angry,
Sounds
I don't know, for
familiar.
example, right? Right. So here's a good example, right? Which I think is relatable. Like if all of a sudden you start insulting me or the audience starts insulting, oh, point, you're ugly, or whatever, and then I get mad, I get angry. By definition, I'm looking outside myself. How dare you say that? You made me mad.
Yeah.
But see, that's outward, that's external. And I am fundamentally missing or misunderstanding reality on some fundamental level because the way I'm feeling is happening within, not without. Right? So the question is going back to beliefs. Right? Beliefs, people generally have a way of thinking in one of two ways.
Mm-hmm.
They can be externally oriented or internally oriented.
Right.
And
Right.
so if your belief systems serve you to be externally oriented, you will very quickly feel powerless. You do that enough times, you learn to become helpless. For example, self-esteem, I think it's something we all can relate to. Somebody with low self-esteem by definition must be external because their sense of self-worth by definition must come from what they think others think about them.
It's like being on social media and looking for those likes, that
Uh-huh.
validation. Who's seen my
Exactly.
stories? How many
Exactly.
likes did I get today? Yeah.
And don't even get me started on a 5-hour rant about how the social media companies are knowing exactly
Talking
what
to
they're
an
doing,
influencer here.
right? So yeah, so if you have low self-esteem by definition, you care or worry about how other people would judge you.
Yeah.
That means that your sense of self-worth is tied to external factors, other people's opinions, how much money you have, what car you drive, what iPhone you have, what social status you have. These are all external factors. And as the Eastern teachers have long realized, they are inherently unstable. They will change through time, right? It's, things are always in a constant flux. So they are unreliable,
Right.
unpredictable, and you are giving your power away.
100%. So Point, as a yoga teacher, I've been doing yoga since I'm 14, and even though I don't really embody, like in my personality, I don't really act like a yoga teacher. I do believe in the teachings. I do highly respect the philosophy and the methods. So I often notice how slowing down helps people reconnect with themselves, with their original or their real authentic selves. From a psychological perspective, why does this work?
Oh, so I borrow an explanation from a communication coach,
Hmm.
and he explained it well. He said that, so let's say, um, imagine you're a fighter going to go in the ring, right? Like a boxing match, right? How do
Hmm.
they hype themselves up? They breathe in really strong and breathe out their nose, right? They're hyping themselves up, right? They're ready for fight or flight. But on the contrary, if you want to calm yourself down, you take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your nose. Because that's kind of the breathing, deep, long breaths that we kind of take when we're relaxed, when we're about to fall asleep. So it's sending the signal to your brain that you are safe. That's why taking a pause, developing a connection with your breath, being aware of your breath, being mindful of your breath, right, helps us to regain that control and clarity. Number one. Number two is once you are focused on your breathing, say here in Thailand, being a Buddhist country, you often hear about meditation, such as anapanasati or vipassana meditation.
Hmm.
So anapanasati is pretty much a form of vipassana. And the idea is to focus your breath on the tip of your nose and put your awareness on the sensation as the air kind of flows in, flows out. It's very subtle, but you'll get it, right? Why is this very powerful? I think it is because when you do that, you are focused on direct experience, the sensations. And when you're focused there, you cannot be engaged in your thinking mind at the same time, which is why there's a sense of detachment that happens.
And
And
also
you're able,
focus.
and
Your focus
also,
redirected to the
yes,
of the nostrils, right? In
per-
Anapanasati.
perfectly said.
Right.
Exactly. Because why? If you're not focused, you're lost in your thinking. You're lost in your train of thought, right? Thinking about this podcast becomes what am I going to have for dinner, becomes what ice cream do I want to eat, becomes, oh, what about my niece that likes this ice cream? And all over the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's lack of
Does your niece
focus.
like ice cream?
Yes.
That's
if she
cute.
doesn't like ice cream, I have to ask, why do you not like ice cream? Just kidding, just kidding.
Um, so how can breath or body awareness support mental health during moments of overwhelm or anxiety?
Mm. If you can look at it as a starting point for a reset button, you know,
Hmm.
So, so how I like to think of it is compared to the speedometer of a car, right? So you're driving a
Okay.
car, right? You got a speedometer, right? You got 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, and 100, 120, and whatever, right? And stress is like that, right? Your mind is working on overdrive, and your stressometer, your speedometer, or your stressometer is like way
Hmm.
in the red, right? So
Right.
when you're overwhelmed, what that really reflects is that throughout that day, you just haven't been managing your thinking so well. That's really all it is. Right. So taking a positive in, it's a break. It's taking your foot off the gas pedal for a moment. And then the car slowly loses momentum and the speedometer slowly comes back and you regain some control. That's how I like to look at it.
That's an amazing example. Um, and what about the body? What things can we do? Do you prescribe for people to do with their bodies in order to come back to the present moment? I know we talked about the, but how would you recommend people can ground their bodies? You know, we call it grounding in yoga. What would you advise?
You know, it's kind of funny because actually, fundamentally, I am sure all of us are actually more skillful in this domain than we give ourselves credit for. Why? Because I'm sure we've all had sick days. Maybe we were having the flu and we're feeling miserable in bed. Or maybe you're hospitalized if you're unfortunate to have had that experience. I've been hospitalized for having the flu, you know. And what do you do in that moment? You have no option but to ride out the wave, baby. You know what I mean? You have no option but to go through it. You'll feel miserable for that day, for the next few days, but you know you will get through it and you will get better. So I link this to suffering. Suffering comes from resisting reality as it is in some way, shape, or form. Your mind is saying, I don't like how reality is going right now. That's a mental projection. And that resistance creates suffering. Being aware of your mental, emotional, physiological thought processes helps you to develop what we call, or what I call, coping skills, right? You're not resisting, you're not judging, you're not demonizing, you're not complaining, you're just watching it mindfully, sitting there when you're uncomfortable. Your heart's racing because you're nervous. Your gut is having butterflies because you want to ask that girl or guy out on a date, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Right? Learn to
hasn't happened
tolerate
to me
it.
in a while. Yeah.
Me too. so, so, learn to tolerate it. Stand tall. Stand in your own clarity. Stand in your dignity. You're still standing. You're still safe in the here and now. Then,
Right.
as I keep saying, your brain starts to learn, wait a minute, I am still safe. I'm not dead. So that coping skill is a fundamental skill set to develop for emotional resilience, for psychological and mental health well-being, for spiritual growth and development, I would say.
Fair. So, can you tell me some small practices that actually can make a difference over time for people? Like they can
Mm,
do, like, you know, you mentioned Anapanasati. So a lot of
mm-hmm,
people in Bangladesh who are not familiar with Vipassana don't know Anapanasati. I know what Anapanasati is because I've done the Goenka meditations. But
mm-hmm.
could you give us some instances of how people can cope better during moments of overwhelm or stress or panic even?
Thank you. So let me go back to the previous question just a little bit and touch on a bit, expand upon it more. So why
Sure.
is coping skill important? Because you come to realize a very powerful insight, which is
Uh-huh.
that we're actually not afraid of anything. What do you mean? We are not afraid of getting sick. We're not afraid of losing our job. We're not afraid of financial problems. We're not afraid of a heartbreak. We're not afraid of our partner leaving us. You are only ever afraid of one thing ever: how you predict you would feel. You're only ever afraid of your emotions. This is why I keep going back. This is fundamental, right? So coping skills, learning to tolerate, sit with, to accept in a loving kindness, so to say, kind of way, in a compassionate, holding space for you to feel the immense suffering that you have in that moment. Oh, it's okay. I'm happy. I'm unhappy now. It's okay. Learning to hold space for that is fundamental because you begin to learn that all this boils down to being afraid of how I feel. Right? Imagine this: if you wanted to apply for that job or ask that person out on a date, but at the same time you feel that, yeah, it might be a little bit like I might feel a bit nervous, I might feel some anxiety. That's normal in a job interview, asking for her number, asking him on a date, whatever. But if you genuinely believe that you'll get through it, you'll cope, you'll be fine, why would you create any anxious, thought-provoking way of thinking, right?
There's always a fear of failure, right? We're always scared of failing or looking bad or falling flat on our faces.
Fear of failure, and this is something we often relate to, including myself, because we're only human. But fundamentally, fear of failure is linked to external self-esteem,
Yeah.
which is just a belief that you have thought over and over and over again, long enough, many times enough. That's become a habit.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Like, imagine a young kid who's so creative. Right? They haven't gone through life enough that life has beaten the creativity out of them. So they're open to possibility. But as adults, we are so used to thinking the same way. Even as a matter of fact, how you start your day is the same way. You wake up on the same side of bed, you brush your teeth the same way, you start breakfast, get water, go to a toilet, and shower the same way. In neurology, you are literally creating habitual neural pathways, right? But the good news is this can all be relearned, unwired, undone, and you can develop new powerful neural pathways, right? So to go back to emotional resilience, the
so
key is, yeah,
the new neural pathways that you're talking about, you're saying that people can change the way their brains are,
yes,
the brains are
yes.
mechanized.
Yes, because of neuroplasticity, because the brain is the
Uh,
only organ that can actually unlearn something and relearn
mm,
something. And each time you think in the same way, you're actually strengthening those neuron connections. You're making a highway, so to say, in how you think and jump to conclusions. But the amazing thing is that can be unlearned completely. There have been numerous studies done. I'll give you a very cool example, which I found really amazing when I learned about this. So a taxi driver, for example, actually has a bigger part in his brain or her brain that is related to uh, spatial memory. So they have a mental map about the city that they're in, and that part is actually more active on an MRI scan. It's bigger, so to say. So, likewise, say somebody, if they go blind one day for whatever reason, an accident or a disease or whatever, in order to compensate for that, they learn to pay attention to their hearing better, right? They learn to rely on that senses better, right? So that is also mapped in your neurology, in your brain scan. It will show up. That's the space in the brain that is responsible for auditory functioning is actually increased. That's called neuroplasticity, which is an amazing piece of discovery because it means that you are no longer a victim to your past. Right. I'm not saying that the past never happened. I'm not saying the past is not important. I'm not saying that it was not hurtful when your partner left you or when that traumatic experience happened. Of course not. But speaking in terms of now and moving forward, you have way more power in your hands than you would believe. And learning to really take advantage of that, to optimize that, is where the key and where the game is at.
so going back to my question, what are some small practices we can
Oh,
incorporate in our daily life
thank you
to
about
get
that.
the neuroplasticity,
Yes,
the magic
I,
that she
I
just talked about?
backtracked there a little bit. I'll give you a technique called the dream technique. Okay, so imagine you're going through each and every day in life. You're too busy in the hurdles of your work, and there's so many emails coming in, phones ringing on your desk. Your boss is saying, "Hey, have you sent that paper?" Blah 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 blah. Right? Use a dream technique. Dream, DREAM stands for detect. Detect the unhelpful thought. Amend. Sorry, reward. Reward yourself for being aware. Well done for being aware, right?
Mhm.
E, escape. Escape doesn't mean running away, but escape means changing the environment that you're in a little bit so that you learn to disassociate or unassociate that thought with that with that typical place that you're in, such as sitting in the chair at your desk at your office and you're feeling miserable. Get up, go to a toilet. Get up, walk in the garden, something like that. You know what I mean? So then you amend. Can you challenge and change that thought to something more positive? Then you magnify, make it more real, make it bigger. So I started the dream technique and then I expanded a bit further on that. Dream again. Dream is detect the unhelpful thought you're having. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling I'm not good enough. I'm feeling under pressure. Detect. Okay, I'm aware. When you have awareness, you are now conscious. That same habitual thought pattern, that same habitual belief system now begins to lose its grip over you because you have shined the light of awareness onto your own thought process. You have detected it. Reward, well done. Well done. Now, this is where most people might have difficulty with, especially if they have self esteem issues, because they're not used to giving themselves credit. They're not used to feeling good about themselves,
Yeah.
right? But that's because they've been so hard on themselves for so long. But for a moment, just learn to appreciate that you've caught yourself in the act, so to say. Right? Escape. Say you're sitting in your desk, right? And you got all these emails on your computer screen, and your boss is demanding things from you. Doesn't matter. Get up, go to the toilet, wash your face, right? Because the previous day, you probably just sat there and kind of continued to feel really, really horrible. Because when you escape and do something new, you have changed the immediate environment at that moment, and it helps you unassociate that thought with where you're at. See my point? Okay. Amend, amend, right? Well, ask yourself, what would your friend say if you told them about this? And say, well done. That's something. That's amazing, right? You're learning to take back control. You're learning to take back power. Focus on what you can control, what it means to you. I am doing the best with what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human. I'm not a robot. I'm not AI. I can only respond to one email at a time. ใจ
Yeah.
เย็นๆใจเย็นๆ in Thai.
What's that again?
ใจเย็น means take it easy.
Take it easy.
Take it
Okay, that's a
easy.
new Thai word
Be
for me.
patient. Take it easy.
Okay.
ใจเย็นๆ in Thai,
Sorry, that's
right?
my dog in the back. So
That's one technique, and I want to expand that a little bit. So what can we do? So then ask yourself this really empowering question to self-study. It goes back to self-study, right?
mhm.
Ask yourself this powerful question. What must I believe to be true in order to feel the way I do? Right? What must I believe to be true in order to feel the way I do? And your dog's barking because he agrees with me.
He wants me to play with him.
Because he agrees with me. So just kidding. Because he's like, yeah, that's really.
Got really inspired. He's like, okay, I'm gonna be happy now. Sorry
Right?
about the point. Yeah.
No worries. What must I believe to be true in order to feel the way I do? And once you can get that belief system articulated more clearly and more precisely, you're taking back control. For example, oh, I believe that if I don't send all these emails in time, my boss is gonna punish me. If my boss punishes me, I'm not gonna get the promotion. If I don't get the promotion, I'm gonna look really, really bad. I'm gonna feel like a failure. So wait, it's not really about the promotion or the salary. It's about fearing judgment. Oh, there you go. I've uncovered it. So this pressure links into fearing judgment. And as we discussed when we met a few weeks back at the presentation, judgment, here's the secret, ready? Is a
Yeah.
human thing. Judgment has got nothing to do with reality.
Everybody
We
judges,
Everybody judges. And
right?
if you examine judgment, if you get to the bottom of judgment, you quickly realize it is a mask for some form of fear, sense of lack, or insecurity coming from the person projecting that judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And that baggage is not yours to carry, right?
Right.
And that's where compassion can come in. You have compassion for yourself, you have compassion for that person. You understand that the pressure that they're trying to project onto you is probably coming from their own unconscious thought processes. But now
And
that you
from their
take
own
back,
experiences.
mm, exactly. What
Yeah.
must I believe to be true in order to feel the way I do?
So, so how can people, I know you talked about going to the bathroom, washing your face, taking a little break, taking a pause. How can people, can you give me some more examples of how people can create their own moments of pause during a busy day, where, you know, without needing like a full break or like a retreat of sorts? Like, you know, some people go like, I'm so burnt out. Like I've got a friend who lives down the road from me who's a hairdresser, and he's like, I'm so burnt out. Every time I see him, he's like, I'm so burnt out. I need to go on a retreat. You know, he keeps telling me I need to go on a retreat. And so instead of going on a retreat, what can people do to take breaks throughout the day? Like, what sort of breaks can they take throughout the day?
You don't need to be sitting in a cave meditating 10,000 hours
Yeah.
to get your mental health back in control. And that's where the beauty is at. There's a quote that I really love. I don't know who started it or who said it first, but some teacher mentioned it. And I'm sure it's been a quote or saying for a long time now, right? And the quote goes something along the lines of, most of humanity's problems come from the fact that we cannot sit still for just 5 minutes.
You're telling me.
I'm telling everyone, including myself, actually.
No, I'm saying it because I was just moving around because, you know, this guy came and he wanted to sit.
I understand you. I totally do. But like I said, lovely dog, participation. I love participation, makes the podcast more lively. And I would like to think that he is saying, yeah, there's some truth there, I think.
100%. Um, so, so to come back to it, what are some ways people can take pauses that can make a difference over time? What are some little habits they can build?
Well, I would advise a short meditation practice, 5 minutes a day, either before you go to bed or when you just wake up. Now, a lot of teachers would recommend when you wake up before you start the day, but I'm a night owl, so I like to do before I go to bed. It doesn't really matter. Or when you're in the midst of the chaos. And this is why this is counterintuitive, because the right decision to make often goes against your instincts. That's why it's difficult. This work is often counterintuitive. Imagine you're in the midst of your work. You're overwhelmed. You got emails. You're under the all these paperwork, all these emails you gotta send. Let me ask you this. I appreciate what you're going through. I appreciate the work you have to do. But is 5 minutes really going to make the world burn down? See my point?
Yeah.
You're still fine. The email can wait 5 minutes unless it's an emergency. And even so, medical professionals who deal with literally life or death situations in the split of 5 seconds, 10 seconds, they can still do this because they've been trained to. So my point is, even medical staff, they're not at the ER 24/7. That's why we have what we call shifts. So ask
Mm-hmm.
yourself, is what I'm doing truly urgent in the truest sense? Urgent meaning somebody's gonna drop down and die if I don't send this email, right?
Yeah.
And some people may be in a line of work that does matter, but it doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every hour. We believe it happens because the pressure of our boss, which wants something, I want this now, I want this now, because we've all been conditioned by the system, so to say. Uh, it gives the false illusion that this is life or death, when in fact it is not. And to go back more fundamentally, when you take a pause, and you examine your thought processes, you begin to learn that your identification with your sense of self, which we could call in these spiritual traditions your ego mind, your sense of self, your attachment to those things, are what produces this fear, right? You
So
believe. Mhm.
you believe, sorry, I
Sorry.
interrupted.
So the reason why we feel that sense of doom or fear is because the intellect is attached to some thought process, and you find yourself in that thought process, which you are not your thoughts, by the way. Thoughts are just thoughts, not reality. Your feelings are not facts. Feelings are feelings, right? So this attachment to those thought processes, you are so identified with this sense of self, is the root cause of fear. And you realize that what's really at stake isn't really that urgent email that this person is going to die if I don't do it in 5 minutes, but it's really more about the survival of this self concept.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where coping skills can help you establish a grounding, right? We're not asking you to be some awakened, detached, enlightened guru here, no. And I don't believe there is any, to be fact, as a
There
matter
are
of fact,
none. There are none. And
yeah.
those are the people who are on Instagram claiming to be, they're just being ridiculous.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, exactly. Right. But the point is, if you can take a moment and regain that perspective for a moment, your speedometer goes back down quite
Mm-hmm.
quickly. Right. If you realize that, oh, okay, so what's really behind this fear isn't really what the boss claims, that if you don't send this email, the business is gonna go down the drain, and everybody here gonna lose their job. Not really about that, actually. It's about the survival of my sense of self, my sense of acceptance or validation, which we all inherently have a need or want or desire to be accepted, to be loved. But we seek that externally, when the truth is it must come from within,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Point, can you tell me why we tend to be so hard on ourselves, especially when we're struggling? Like, I know we're hard on ourselves on a daily basis, but why are we so hard on ourselves when we're struggling? Why do we push ourselves like that?
The way I like to think about this, and take what you like from what I have to share, take it as just my opinion, so to say, is we live in a world full of contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
So we live in a society that preaches happiness, love, compassion, but expects another thing. We live in a world where we say one thing to one another, but we expect another thing. When push comes to shove, if you're not delivering what they want, they're gonna punish you in some way, shape, or form. Which is why it's easy to lose perspective on that.
So that's why we're
Right?
so hard on ourselves.
Yes. So we then are, through this playing this game and going through the repetition of this game, we then slowly but gradually are led to believe, or are entrained to, or are conditioned to believe, that our emotional security, our happiness, and our self-worth is now dependent upon our ability to please somebody else out there. That is inherently external, and that is what creates external self-esteem. You then care more and more what other people think about you. You then care more and more about how they're going to perceive you, how they're going to punish you, when you are none of that, when you are none of that at all.
That's why it's
Now,
so important to take that pause.
yes, to take that pause and take back your power, take back your control. Now, I'm not saying to be careless. I'll be like, I've had it. I don't care anymore. I'm not saying do that. That's just overreaction on the other end of the extreme, right?
Yeah.
But the point is this. I borrowed this from another teacher. Is, you see, humans are not at their best when they're trying to prove their worthiness or trying to get validation. Humans are at their absolute best when they are joyful, happy, and content from within, and are in alignment with their clarity. So if we learn to understand that other people's projections are their homework to solve, you don't take on other people's homework assignments. So you have less homework to do. That's good.
So
I don't know if that helps answer
it's
what you're looking for.
it is. It's really, really great. We do look for a lot of external validation, and we do look. I mean, as women, we look for approval from others, right? A lot from others. Like it could be our child, it could be our partners, it could be our family. We are always seeking approval. It could be the world at large, like your boss, like you keep on bringing up your workplace. Um, what does self-compassion look like in real life? especially on days when we don't feel okay. Like what would you do as a form of self-compassion on a day when you don't feel 100%?
No blame, no condemnation, no judgment. It's number one. Not
Mm-hmm.
judging yourself. It's okay to feel the way you do. No shame, no blame, no condemnation. I have bad days. I have self doubts. I have limiting beliefs. Of course I do. I have days where I'm feeling shit, quite frankly. Right? But in those days, I am able to validate the way I feel, which means I'm able to accept the way I feel. But at the same time, I'm not, this is very important. At the same time, I am not feeding that train of thought that colludes with my sense of powerlessness. Imagine this. Imagine you are a parent and you have a young kid
I
who's
do.
maybe, oh, that perfect example. There you go. So
Yeah.
imagine you have a young kid, young child, who's going through school, uh, going through their teenage years, maybe feeling a little bit shy at school, awkward, or sort as we all do when we're going through growing up. And maybe like, like, mommy, I don't want to go to school, right? You want to be able to provide the space that lets the child know that it's completely okay to feel the way you do, right? A safe space, how you would imagine a loving parent would provide for you. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
do appreciate some people might come from unhealthy parents, but I'm sure we cannot imagine what a healthy parent figure ought to be like. A calm, gentle, nourishing, supportive, positive, helpful tone of voice, appreciative, accepting, loving, right? It's okay to feel the way you do, but here's the important but, not to collude with their sense of powerlessness. For example, some parents do this. Yeah, school is so bad. Okay, you can have a day off. It must be so scary. It must be so scary. It must be so scary there. You're making that person increase the fear and the limiting beliefs around it
Yeah.
without colluding to the limiting beliefs behind that powerlessness. So going back to your initial question, what can we do to give ourselves some slack or compassion in an overwhelming day? Remind yourself you're only human. This is a human condition. There's no such thing as perfection. And thriving, by the way, which is the program I work for, thriving is not being perfect. Thriving is doing the best with what you've got and finding a sense of fulfillment in that, a sense of meaning in that, finding growth in that. Because no matter what kind of shit life throws at you, pardon my French, no matter what kind of shit life throws at you, you can still stand strong and carry your suffering courageously, with dignity, with honor, with integrity, and say that I still am showing up for me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to cry. It's okay to need emotional support. I work in this field. I still have many friends I go to help me get perspective when I want to consult them on some things. It's okay to feel the way you do. And that provides the space to hold your emotions from a place of loving kindness and compassion. And then you begin to calm down and the speedometer goes back to 20, 10, 0, and you're safe. And and uh, and you begin to see, oh, I see now, right? Like, number one, my emotion was just an experience. It didn't have power over me. I'm in control. Number two, I see why I was so worried, because I'm worried about other people's judgments. So then how do you take that power? Well, you realize that no matter how skillful you are, no matter how smart, talented, skillful, kind, or enlightened, or whatever it is you are, nobody on earth you cannot satisfy every single person on earth, right? You cannot, right?
That's
So
it.
what, right? Exactly. So a more sustainable way, a more empowering way would be to to really ask yourself the empowering question, what is it that is truly within my control?
Mm-hmm.
And it's doing the best that I can. Because when you do the best that you can, given the limited time you had, when that assignment was thrown at you, given the limited resources you were given the limited information you were given, when that project was thrown at you, so I need this by Monday. Doing the best of what you can means you find a meaning, you find a value, you find a sense of nourishment for your mind, soul, and mental functioning, psychological function, which nobody on earth can take away from you. That is the key. That's what we call developing internal self-esteem. See my point?
Sure. So if I were somebody who has trouble sitting down with uncomfortable emotions, okay? So if I'm somebody who struggles with sitting down with uncomfortable emotions, and what I do is like I'll push it away. I'll spit something on Netflix and I'll watch something on Netflix, or I'll go eat something really big, or I will like do something else, you know, to completely distract myself instead of like acknowledging how I feel. And a lot of people do that, you know, we push things away. How it takes a lot of courage to learn to sit with discomfort, right? How do people learn to sit with discomfort? Like, do you have any tips for how to sit with discomfort?
It goes back to fundamentals and what I think we mentioned in the beginning, where you are actually way more courageous and skillful and strong than you give yourself credit for.
You have to have self-belief, right? Like, no matter
Yes,
what, even if the world is coming at you, you feel like the world is coming at you, which it actually is not ever.
you
Um,
have to teach yourself and prove something new to yourself, right? Remember,
right.
the first part was easy to understand, empowering, and evidence based, right? So, for
Mm,
example, if I want to go and run a marathon, and I've never freaking gone to the gym, not once, yeah, that's gonna be a not a low hanging fruit, right?
yeah.
So I gotta prove to myself slowly but gradually, with some practice, go walk 1 kilometer, just walk,
Uh-huh.
right? Oh,
Start
maybe you can
slow.
do this. Maybe you can do this. Run 2 kilometers. Maybe you can do this. Run two, walk one. Oh, run 5 kilometers. Increase
Mm-hmm.
your speed, increase your pace. Go to do weight training, etc. You're building up the belief. You're putting more evidence in your direct experience that you can do this. You don't have to believe the old habitual way of thinking anymore. So that's number one. So again, how do you come back to center when it's so easy to run away or escape, right? That was the original question, something like that, right?
No, the question
And
was how to sit with uncomfortable
oh,
emotions.
right. So
Yeah.
first of all, uh, you're absolutely right when you said that, distracting yourself, going to eat something, watch Netflix or whatever, that's distraction. Which actually entrains you to be more external because you're now relying on something outside of yourself to change the way you feel, which you may feel better temporarily in a short run, but
Yeah.
you become and believe that you're more powerless in the long run. So, like I said in the beginning, we have actually done more than we give ourselves credit for. Each and every one of us has been sick before. Being sick is a really uncomfortable experience, isn't it? But you've gone through it. So then, what you need to do is to remind yourself that sitting with your emotions is just discomfort and it can't change you. Now, the next step, and I stress this step number two, very important, when you actually gather the strength to sit there courageously, which you can now do, right? You then have to learn to process that experience so that it becomes something that you learn. What does processing mean? This is the psychology part. Processing means the way you interpret something and give meaning to your experience until it becomes part of your memory and who you are,
Mm.
right? So if you're sitting there 5 minutes and you feel completely uncomfortable, but then you think in your mind, I'm worthless, I'm horrible, I'm never gonna get better, that experience was not helpful. See? You've actually done something pretty cool, but you didn't give yourself the credit,
Yeah.
right? So what it means is sit there in 5 minutes, shut off your phone, shut off your computer, and 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 just feel into it. Don't resist it, right? Right. Imagine you're going to the doctor and they have to do some small operation on you. Like, what does the doctor say? They try to get you to relax, to not resist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there might be some pain, but the more you resist, the more you struggle, the worse
The
it's going to
worse
be
it
for you.
gets. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
similar here. Don't resist, and then tell yourself, hey, this is not bad at all. I can do this. I'm more
Mhm.
powerful than I thought. I'm still okay. I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. This is amazing. I feel alive,
Yeah.
right? And you're teaching yourself something. I dramatize that, but actually, there's a psychology reason for that. The more you dramatize it, the more you make it alive. So you enrich that new experience, and you gain you. Pardon my French again. You milk the shit out of it, and you learn something new and valuable. So milk the shit out of it, right? Well done, me. I'm a badass. This is the first time at this. I've never done this in my entire life.
100%.
I've always run to YouTube or called a friend for emotional support every time I'm feeling down. For the first freaking time, I sat for 5 minutes. My house did not collapse on me. Well done, me.
Absolutely.
Was that
Yeah.
helpful?
Very helpful. Very, very, very helpful. You woke us up. Point, we're almost towards the end, okay?
Time
So
flies. I can't believe it's an hour already. Jeez, I just felt like we just
yeah,
started.
I really so if somebody who's watching this, right? And today was a big day for us in Bangladesh. It's a day we've all been waiting for, and some of the comments are like political comments which you don't really want to respond to. But if somebody's watching this and feels tired or stuck or emotionally overwhelmed right now, what would you want them to hear? This is my final question to you.
Wow. Well, let me begin by this. First of all, if you're feeling stressed and anxious, congratulations. Now you might think, why am I celebrating that? Well, behind your stress and anxiety must mean you deeply care for your country, right? No matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, right? So well done there. We can all relate to that. We can all share that common strength.
Mm-hmm.
So your anxiety, your stress reflects that you deeply care for something, right? Now let me explain the psychology of negativity or stress, right? Why are we so negative? Because the brain, right, is built for survival. And so it's predicting all the time. It's trying to predict a worst case scenario outcome because it's trying to assess whether it can control or avoid or escape from the situation in some way, shape, or form. Which sounds good in theory, right? This is what we could call a desire to understand, desire for control. Sounds good in theory if you could calmly and dispassionately handle the situation as it comes. But most times, if we're thinking from a place of powerlessness, oh, the world's going to end if this guy comes to power, let's say, then you only have more reasons or more things to worry about, and it makes the situation more overwhelming. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to take a moment to explain the psychology behind it, because I want to take us back to basics, right?
Yeah.
I get it. I get it that there is good reason to be stressed or anxious, especially at an important turning stone like a national election. It's a milestone. It's a turning point for your country. Thailand went through this, and we're still going, seeing who's going to form the government, etc. But let's really regain clarity, right? Let me summarize all we've been discussing. What can you really control at the end of the day? Well, first of all, appreciate your care for your country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What can you control? Maybe you might not directly be able to control the political or the economy on a national level directly, maybe not. But you know what? At the end of the day, you are neighbors with your fellow Bangladeshis. You are neighbors with your fellow Thai. I am neighbors with one person who thinks opposite of my political point of view, and so does the guy on the right, guy on the left. How about this? Would it not be better if rather than allowing the political process to divide us and be in fear, to actually, rather than hating somebody who has a different point of view, why don't you genuinely connect them on a level of being human? They're your neighbor. They have their family that they care for. They have their kids they love, and you can relate to that. Show a little bit of care, show a little bit of concern. Hey, man, how can I get you something? Hey, how are you doing? Nice day, isn't it? And process that internally. Is it not worth celebrating? Is it not commending that you can put your political opinion aside and come back to basics, to what really matters?
100%.
And
I so
imagine,
agree with you.
and imagine the small steps, how this can lead to big momentum. Imagine if everybody did this, or even just more than 50% of us did this. Imagine how much better your neighborhood could be. Imagine
there will be no more division.
there you go. There you go. Imagine what positive spillover effect you would have.
100%.
Imagine the satisfaction you have in being the bigger man, so to say, right? And that, I think, is incredibly meaningful. It is the hero's journey, because it's not about the outcome, but it's about who you become in the process. It's about having the capacity to love thy enemy. And you realize that at the end of the day, the true enemy is within, not without.
100%.
And number two, it goes to a quote that I've heard a long time ago, I really like, right? I'm sure you've heard this. Is when I was young, I was clever and wanted to change the world. When I got older, I became wiser, so I wanted to change myself. So if we all start there, we can all do great things.
So Point, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. Point, this was so enlightening. It was so wise and humorous and all of that. I'm sure I absolutely loved it. So thank you
Likewise.
to you, and
thank you for hosting.
Of course, my pleasure. And thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you for pausing.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for pausing with us.
And
I really
the Thai
appreciate
word
that.
for the pause within is
พักใจ
Jai.
And there's a Thai word that says สติมาปัญญาเกิด. When you have awareness, wisdom comes. สติมาปัญญาเกิด.
Satima Panyaka.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much. And yeah.
Have a good evening, everybody. And
Yeah.
feel free to comment your questions here, and we'll respond if we can. And looking forward to helping you out in any way we can, and more conversations to come.
Perfect. Good night, Point.
Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.